Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop, all the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Hi folks, Cesar here. Thanks for joining us this evening. We have a great show. It's Herndon night here in Studio C. Got a few candidates with us. Want to bring them to you, hear them out, and decide for yourself. First of all, full disclosure, this next guest, the first guest, I'm completely behind them and endorsing them in their victories. I think this is the kind of change we need in elected office. My first guest is Mr. Sean Regan. He's currently a colleague of mine on the Herndon Town Council. He and his family have been in Herndon for 25 years. He's married, a father, and he's been involved. And quite frankly, I'm going to let him get in here. And Sean, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
You're very welcome, Cesar. Thank you very much for having me. We did this 2 years ago, as I recall, and it was by Zoom. And
that's right.
And you were in a little box, and this is so much better to be here in person with you.
Absolutely. So, although we're technically in a box, in a studio box, but I love the in-person. Right. Yeah. Sure. So, first of all, you've had a pretty good history of being involved and contributing in Herndon. So, first, kind of like enlighten us on that. I know you were on planning for quite a while there, right?
Well, sure. I mean, with the town government, I've done several things in my time. My largest role was on the Planning Commission from 2012 to 2020. Spent 8 years on the Planning Commission. It was a pretty good fit. It was comfortable for me from my real estate background, my work running large construction projects, and applying for and obtaining zoning variances and other changes for my clients for many, many years. So it was a natural fit that was pretty comfortable. After 8 years of that, I decided I wanted to do something more. And I had more time professionally. My kids were older. Mm-hmm. I was sort of looking for the next big thing, and I decided to throw my hat in for town council. Ran in 2020, and have been serving there now for almost 2 years.
Awesome, awesome. And you've been contributing, and you've started some initiatives. You've been showing some leadership on some of the key areas that I think have been not completely ignored, but just undervalued in the town. So, in terms of your background, how has that helped, kind of like your vision on the desired outcome that you want to see?
Yeah, well, as you probably noticed, I am not a politician. I mean, I'm not a particularly political person. My work running large-scale real estate development construction projects involves leading or being part of and often leading a team of people that are very good at what they do, that have different roles from architects to engineers to contractors to zoning attorneys to environmental specialists, historians, a lot of different roles, managing that group of people day to day to get the job done. I didn't think that would apply to town council going into it. What I found is that or I remembered, I suppose, is that so much of my work involves working with people in small groups who have different opinions about things, and even who often have different interests at the end of the day. And communicating with them and trying to come up with the best solution we possibly can for the client, even if it isn't exactly what some people want or even exactly what I want. So that's sort of compromise, and I hesitate to call it negotiation because that sounds like a more adversarial word. But it's not always collaboration either, right? It's trying to understand what their interests are, what their fears are, and then find a way to get what's best for my client and handle their concerns as best that I can through it. So once we're up on the dais, on town council, it felt surprisingly comfortable to me to be with 6 other people who I didn't exactly know what they wanted here or what they were worried about, and to try to tease that out and share my thoughts and concerns and then find the best product that we could. I've really enjoyed that role, and I would love to continue doing it from the mayor's chair and really creating a culture of collaboration and healthy disagreement to get what's best for Herndon.
So with your background, it seemed, you kind of touched on it, it seemed kind of natural for you to come in and kind of look at these different personas that you have to work with. and kind of form consensus, and I mean that's all part of your day job, right? I mean that's kind of what you have to do, right?
Oh yeah, it certainly is. There are, in any big construction project, there are several contracts that are well into the seven figures. If you're on a $100 million job, the construction contract's 80 million, the architect's contract might be 5 or 6 or 7. And those individuals are trying to do their job as best they can, and they're also protecting themselves and their companies as best they can. So there's always this give and take between collaboration and a slightly adversarial role at times that you have to manage and continue through it for a really long time, for 2 years, for 4 years, for 6 years to get something built. Our downtown development project has been a long time coming, and it certainly has been longer than it should. But I've found that I really enjoy these roles where you need to be able to keep your focus for a long time on it. I like it, and the gratification you get at the end of a job, at the ribbon cutting, whether it's a school for kids from disadvantaged neighborhoods that I do for the Seed Foundation, whether it's a museum like my work at Mount Vernon Estate or the Walters Art Gallery in Baltimore. Seeing the end result of those years and years of work for a big, complicated team is tremendously gratifying. I really enjoy it. And it sort of lends itself to the kind of things that we have to do and being forward-thinking.
Yeah, and I can tell just as an observer of people and behavior, you certainly have that background to work in groups, collaborate, or lead on certain things. And that's not an easy thing to possess and then refine. But for this discussion, we'll get to some of the other stuff in the next segment, but what was that light bulb moment, the why, right? Why council and then why mayor, right? Share a little bit about what was that kind of journey or thought process like?
Well, sure. I think to answer that question, I almost have to start by why Herndon, right? Ann and I moved to Herndon in 1997, a little rambler on Charlton Place. It was equidistant from my job and her job, and we found that there was fairly affordable housing in the town. We got married, and within a couple of years, I had started my business. Our first son was born, and we started developing these routes. When we had toddlers, when we had kids in elementary school, we started building these relationships that have become such a part of us and the community that we've been able to build. It's just been a logical step since then to, as I have more time, and really Ann and I have more time to give as a couple, to give back as much as we can for the town and the people who have supported us, not in a political way, but just supported us in our lives, in our successes and our failures and our tragedies, to give back to them. And to a great extent, try to pay it forward for the families and the individuals that are going to inherit the town that we leave for them, right? I'm in my 50s right now. I've got a lot of years ahead of me, but I have a lot of years behind me. And I always want to be thinking about that 20-something who's picking a place to settle, or that 13-year-old who's at the middle school right now. They have a lot more at stake in the town than I do. They're going to be here for a longer time if they choose to stay. So I want to create the world that they deserve, a good town for them. And if somehow, some way in 20 years or in 30 years, they look back and say, gosh, I'm glad that somebody did this way back when to make it better for me. That would be wonderful. Yeah.
Great. So that happened. So you got on council. What was the light bulb moment for, like, hey, I need to either stay on council or go for mayor? What was that, the compelling sort of reason or event that?
Well, sure, and that honestly came as a surprise to me. I was enjoying the time that I had spent on council. There were aspects that I found challenging. I probably would have preferred to see more earnest and open debate from the dais, more, well, let me explain it this way. One of the things that I like the most is when I'm talking to smart people and I kick out an idea and they are willing to bat it around and either make it better or maybe tear it apart so it's not my idea anymore, but it's becoming our idea, or frankly, explain to me how it's a really bad idea, and we reject it. Any three of those outcomes, I love it. I love the discourse that gets to that, right? And early on in council, there was a reluctance to open the agendas, to consider new things that we might do and we might not do, but let's at least talk about it, right? And through the strategic initiatives process that really you championed, that gave us a venue to have those ideas, some of which were great and we're doing, some of which were okay and we might make better and finally do, some of which weren't that good, but it was worth talking about them. The reason I'm running for mayor is that I want to create a culture on the town council that encourages that kind of thinking, that encourages residents to come to us or to the Diversity Inclusion Committee or through whatever venue they want to bring up their ideas and let us kick them around. They might be bad ideas and we might jointly decide to move on from them. But they might be really good ideas, much better than the ideas that I'm gonna bring up, right? And I wanna create an environment that encourages that kind of open thought. Instead of being fearful of what change might be, or it might be too hard, or too expensive, or not the way we've done things in the past. I'm not afraid of any of that kind of a change, especially the change that I don't even know about that comes from some other place.
No, and one of the reasons I'm completely supporting you is you're not afraid to even have the discussion, right? And to not have the discussion does a bigger disservice, I think, because you've shut down the institution and you've shut down a channel for a vehicle to serve and deliver something to the residents.
Yeah. Well, Cesar, I grew up in a family with two older brothers, all very close in age. One's a year older, one's 2 years older than he. And these guys are very, very smart. And at my dinner table, if you weren't willing to engage in ideas and discuss them and sometimes get rejection, you couldn't get a word in edgewise, and you probably didn't get dessert. So it became comfortable very early on that that's the way you do it, right? It's never personal. But I tell you, if you bring up an idea, you better be ready to defend it, right, and think it all out.
Yeah, you got to think it through, and that's why I think you've done a great job in lining up your strategic initiatives, and we'll talk about those in the next segment. But I just wanted the viewers and give you an opportunity to talk about why, right, and why it was, and appreciate you sharing that with me. So again, we're going to talk about some of your initiatives, what you want to do, and how you think you might go about getting them done in our next segment. So there's a lot more to discuss because I've been reading through your profile here. There's a ton of stuff we want to get through. So folks, please stay tuned with us. Welcome back to our next segment, and we'll be right back.
Nice going, Spencer. I can't believe we broke Old Man Hennessy's window.
Correction, dude. You broke. I just threw the ball.
This is really bad. What are we gonna do?
We?
Go to the door, ask for the ball back. Are you serious?
It's my ball, Myrtleback.
You're so dead. I'd run away.
Yeah, to Uruguay.
Kiss your life goodbye. Sorry.
Let's go. See you, dude. See ya. Remember me and your well.
Nice life. Some friends you are.
Keep smiling, keep shining.
Hi.
Hi.
Tell him it was an accident. And we can fix the window. Come on. I'll come with you.
Loyalty. Pass it on.
You go first.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
One day these rats were playing in the woods. Well, it's a matches and that's no good. Listen to smoke before you give it a try. Only you. Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about rooftop fight. Nothing very nice on a homeless mind. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches. Don't play with fire.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Hi folks, Cesar here, back in Studio C. It is Herndon night this evening. My current guest is Sean Regan, current council member in the town of Herndon, candidate for the town mayoral spot. Sean, thanks for sticking around. So appreciate you sharing that information with us in the earlier segment. I want to get into sort of the what you want to do and how you think you might go about doing it in terms of your priorities. Big thing for Herndon is the downtown redevelopment I'm hearing a lot of.
Well, I'm certainly hearing it every time I go out into a neighborhood, and we're doing these street corner Ask Me Anything sessions where we set up in somebody's front yard or on a street corner and invite a few of the neighbors over, and frankly, whoever's just out walking on a nice night can stop in and talk, and we have cold drinks or coffee. And the number one question I get is about what's going on with the downtown development. It is a challenging project. I support it wholly. I've read all of those agreements. They are not different from other agreements that I've done in my work through public-private partnerships, working for my clients. The contract is not that different from those. This one in particular does give the developer the right to pause the job for as much as 24 months to work out market conditions or financing or a variety of other things, and they chose to do that. They're not in default. It was written into the contracts. They have the right to do it. As much as anybody else, I want to see that get going. I'd like to engage with them to understand what their concerns are, to understand what's slowing that down, and see if there's anything that we can do that doesn't give away what's important to us that would help them get going. If there is nothing that could help them get going, or if they're stopping for other reasons, I think we need to be prepared to move on without them at the end of those 24 months. Herndon deserves a vibrant, walkable downtown. They deserve an arts center. They deserve an arts plaza. It's a great arrangement with the developer we have right now, but if for some reason they can't do it, we need to find somebody else that can.
Yeah, it's been sort of like stuck in this sort of quagmire of, they're saying, well, we got to certainly wait for some market things to be aligned and profitable, but the town is really, this thing's been an idea back for like 30 years, I think. That's a long time to get something done. Is it the approach? Was it the process, or?
Well, that's a good question. Public-private partnerships under Virginia code are complicated things. In essence, the municipality gives up control of certain areas in order to gain control of certain areas and to be able to create this development that mixes our public parking in our situation and arts center and plazas and things, to mix it in with their private development. The other option is that in 2008 or 2010, we could have assembled all that property ourselves, and we could have sold it. And the developer would have built something probably similar to what we have, but not as well integrated. And
well, we wouldn't have gotten potentially an arts facility. We potentially wouldn't have gotten all the things that we currently want, correct?
Oh, you're exactly right. Now we would have gotten cash that we could have used to build those things elsewhere. Yeah. But we have enjoyed through this arrangement of a lot of influence about what our downtown is going to look like. And so I still believe that is worthwhile. It doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean these processes are easy. And it really is a partnership that I think we need to stick to.
Good. Yeah, that's I'm hearing that as the top concern for folks. I've kept track of everyone's initiatives. You've championed quite a few here, and for the record, you've got at least 4 that I know of in terms of initiatives that these are the things that you want to get done.
Sure.
Certainly address and prioritize the redevelopment. Any others for you, or are you hearing?
Well, since we're talking about downtown, I got to talk about designated outdoor refreshment areas.
The Dora, yes.
The Doras, which people would love to see in downtown Herndon. So this is an area, as you know, that people could purchase an alcoholic beverage from one business within the zone, and then take it out and go walking around, sit on a bench on the sidewalk, cross the street, go somewhere else, go into a different place. They're very complicated to create under Virginia law, but they can be done. And it's the kind of thing that requires long-term persistence, flexibility, creativity to make that happen. One thing for sure, though, is that the businesses downtown want it, and that the people say that they want it also to keep Herndon downtown vibrant.
Yeah, I got to tell you, just walking through the downtown, that buzz was there this weekend. It was a beautiful weekend. Obviously, you don't have people walking around with open containers, but there's just such a nice vibe with this sort of outdoor seating and just this outdoor consumption. And I think that whole designated area would certainly add some more excitement and vibrancy there. Yeah.
Oh, sure. You know, small town downtowns have been dying in America for 60 years, really since the interstate highway bypassed them. Yeah. And Herndon, even for all the Northern Virginia growth, downtown Herndon suffers that same fate because the toll road is a mile away. The vibrancy you saw when Green Lizard moved in, what you're seeing over at Aslan now, the street traffic, the people there, it benefits everybody. And let's not forget that the patrons of those businesses are supporting restaurant taxes, other business taxes, and hopefully someday we'll have a hotel in downtown Herndon and there'll be transient occupancy tax coming as well.
That would be good.
The doors are a part of it. They're not the biggest part of it, but they're a part of it, right?
Yeah, and those businesses certainly bring in more people with more dollars to spend in other businesses. So it's a ripple effect going across. Dora, so we talked about redevelopment and Dora. What the other initiative I think we want to talk about is certainly the traffic calming. Anything else that I'm missing there?
Well, in terms of the strategic initiatives, I want to get to housing in a minute, but probably the other major strategic initiative has to do with traffic calming, parking, and traffic on our roads. It has been frustrating to see a number of accidents in Herndon on residential streets caused by distracted drivers, speeders, but drivers who probably ought not be on those streets to start with that are cutting through our town. I think that I've been really impressed by the way some of the residents have mobilized to get their voices heard. I know that you were the first one on Spring Street to go out there and take a look and see what that looked like in the hours after that particular accident happened, and I know the residents appreciate that. But when we look at, in the micro level, you know, 4-way stop signs, 3-way stop signs, traffic calming measures that we can use to slow people down, or I think more recently to get them to look up from their phones that they shouldn't be looking at in the first place. Those things are critical. And then we have this long-term initiative that was supported unanimously by council that I proposed, that I'm thrilled about, to really study the traffic on the major roads in town. I've got a suspicion that a lot of the roads on 606 coming in, on Herndon Parkway in the southwest quadrant of town, are Western commuters that are cutting through Herndon to their jobs in Reston or Tysons or Fairfax. They don't live here, they don't work here, they don't shop here, they don't play here, but they clog up our roads. And for the first time ever, we're doing what's called an origin destination study that not just identifies speed and number of vehicles, but determines where that car started and where it's going. And if we find that those folks are just passing through and not stopping here to do any of the things that we want them to do, that'll give us the data, which is really the ammunition to work with regional road authorities, including the authorizers of the toll road and the greenway, to find a way to get those cars onto the roads they're supposed to be on, the major commuting corridors that the whole region was designed for them to be on. So I'm really excited about that. And it's going to be a long-term grind.
Sure.
But like I said, for my work, I like doing the long-term grind.
No, I think that's the type of leadership I think the town has been missing for decades. Identify a problem, even though it's not in this year's budget, we still need to address these things, right? I mean, because I think for many councils, it was a survival of budget to budget, right? How do we just get through this next budget? And then I can't do anything else, so I'm not going to worry about anything else. So it's refreshing. I hope the residents understand how valuable that is to have in the leadership role.
Yeah, it's something that I really enjoy. I think that we should have a balance of very day-to-day practical things that we're doing, and we should have a couple, 3 moonshots that we do that are high risk but tremendously high reward, that we should focus our time on all of those things.
So another one I think is important to you, and it's near and dear to my heart, is the housing initiative that I think you supported. Workforce housing, I mean, that's kind of a big deal in this region.
Well, I mean, first I want to thank you for sponsoring the initiative that we worked on and edited together about researching housing stipends for towns, police, and other staff. I really felt like I got to know you through that process and work on those editing. And just to send you edits that you said, this doesn't make any sense, and you throw it back. And then we send it back and forth, and we made it better together because of that.
A contrarian view is a good thing, people, right?
It is. It's not a personal attack.
That's right.
It's not a personal attack. But the other thing about housing that I want to mention, because we don't have our own housing authority, right? There's certain things that we're not able to do. They're not tools in our toolbox. Right. But we control our own zoning. And through our zoning and traditional things that we can change in it, but even some new levers we can pull in zoning, I think we can create more workforce housing in this town. And the elaborate rezoning steps that happened at 315 Eldon Street, the Residence Inn over by on the east side of town, to allow that to be used as an apartment complex of 168 units, 50% of which are going to be set aside for the next 30 years for people making less than 80% of average median income, is tremendous. We did that without a housing authority, right? And it's a tribute to our staff that understood the different levers that had to tumble into place to make that happen. And I think it's a credit to the council to stick with that. It started with the Planning Commission, and the council is finishing it. But that's 100, that's 90, almost 90 units, right? Of workforce housing in the town in a place where there have been none.
Right, and that, again, speaks to one of the things that I think you are certainly able and capable of addressing is it takes a vision, it takes a clear thought or desired outcome to be defined, and then making it happen. So, again.
Yeah, well, it takes both those things, right? You can have a vision, and you can have big ideas, and you can write long-winded technical papers about those ideas, right? But if you can't execute those ideas, and more importantly, if you can't get 4 or 5 or 6 other people on council to understand the benefit, to buy into them, to make those ideas their own, you're not going to get anything done, right? It's this critical balance of vision and execution and tenacity that you need to do the jobs that we need to do, and that we have to do for the town that we represent, right? We've got to hear the voices of the people in Herndon. We've got to listen to the ideas that come up through the diversity committee, through all the neighborhoods of our town, and then it's our job to implement them.
No, Sean, thank you for that. And again, thank you for coming in tonight. I think you have done a great job of certainly inspiring people and empowering a team. So good luck in the election. We'll be talking soon, and appreciate you coming back. Folks, we'll be right back with our next guest. Please hang around for this next segment.
There. Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding.
Why did the girl ask the mushroom to dance? Because he was a fun guy.
What do you call a pig that knows karate?
Pork chop.
Why was the basketball court all wet?
Why?
Because the players kept dribbling all over it. Can I tell you another one? So how does a tissue dance? Put a little boogie on it.
What's Beethoven's favorite fruit? Banana. What is a boxer's favorite drink? Fruit punch.
Mom, I got it. What are you doing in there?
I got stuck.
Are you a dog?
I wouldn't do that. Have you seen the pliers? Where'd you find those?
It's not your birthday.
Sorry.
Bye, Grandpa.
Bye, Grandpa.
Take care of yourself.
What are you doing? What are you looking for?
we're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Hi, folks. Cesar back with you. Thanks for joining this next segment. I have a very special guest, longtime friend, someone that I have a lot of respect for, and a new face to the world of Herndon politics. This person's pretty brave, so we're going to find out what's behind her decision to jump into the council race here in Herndon and talk about some of her vision and ideas and what she wants to do and how she plans on doing it. My next guest, Donielle Scherff, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome to Studio C. We're excited to have you here.
Thank you.
So a little bit about your background. You're a business owner.
I am a small business owner. In fact, I can proudly tell you for the last 10 years I've been a small business owner.
How's that working for you?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I feel like the luckiest person to be able to live in this community and have a small business and to be able to make time in my schedule and my life to do things like run for town council.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So being a business owner, you kind of understand expenses and revenues, right?
I do.
and why that's important to plan year after year after year after year.
Absolutely.
So
this has come up in community conversations because I am a new face, right? This is the first time I'm running for council. So I guess I'm a new face in that way. I'm definitely not a new face around Herndon, but I've had to have this conversation about, what qualifies me to sit in this seat. And that idea of being able to understand the revenue and the expense side of things has come up. And yes, you can't run a successful business without understanding a budget and an understanding that, even your best intentions can't come to fruition unless you have a way to get there.
Well, and prioritizing.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, it's like, and you've obviously had to make tough decisions in your business, right? Indeed. Where to invest, where to cut, where to try to expand or invest to expand, right? So.
Yeah, so same, my business has grown incrementally, and I keep in my mind that slow is fast sometimes. You make the tough decisions, you stick with them until it's time to make the next decision and you do the next right thing. And I think that's the same goal and approach for the town's budget. We are just coming out of this pandemic, and there's been some austerity measures that had to happen. I think the number was 85%. We're at 85% staffing.
Correct.
And so I've had a lot of people ask that question. If we can do that at 85% staffing, can we continue to do that at 85% staffing? And I want to be able to say, absolutely. We will keep those taxes low, we will cut them even further, and we will give you all the amenities that there are.
Right.
But we're at this inflection point in Herndon, right? We have to be able to grow, and we have to be able to accommodate what's coming. And we know that new neighbors are coming to Herndon. We have this growth around the metro stop. We have this growth potentially around downtown. And so, we need to be conservative because that's, we want to be a good steward of everyone's tax dollars. But we also need to plan ahead for what's coming so that we can all live there comfortably and happily.
And what I find, I'm sure you probably hear this on the doors as you're talking to people, is people seem to forget that we live in town too. So what impacts them also impacts us.
Absolutely.
So, and that's, I think, something that people sometimes forget in these roles. We're with you.
We're with you. We're paying those taxes with you. Absolutely. Right. A lot of people have come up to me and said, I'm on a fixed income. I've lived here for 35 years and this is a really serious issue for me. And I can say, well, I think it's the same issue for someone who's just gotten their foothold into being a homeowner. Yeah. And for me, I'm a single person, so I'm a single income household. So it's nice to be able to talk to people in different phases and stages of life and find the commonality. But we're all in this together. And I think for me, that's the overarching message. We live in this great little town. We're fortunate enough to have a municipal government, and that means we can all get involved.
Right. Well, and if you're not making those tough decisions, someone else is. So
for you, right? It's
so
not good.
Get involved. Good. So kind of the same question I asked Mr. Regan, I'll ask you in terms of what was that sort of moment where you decided to devote time, energy, passion to sort of this phase or this part, this journey of council? Right?
Yeah, I think that's a two-phased answer.
Okay.
So when I bought my house in Herndon, I knew that I was committing not just to that mailing address, but I was committing to this community. And at first, it was sort of a non-formal, I got involved in different organizations. I was volunteering my time. I was making sure to meet the neighbors, all the things you do when you really live in a community, because that's important to me. And as things progressed, and I got to know more people, and I got to know need, and I got to know, a church community and a business community and a small business community, which is huge in Herndon. The thing that kept coming up is that people wanted to be more involved and didn't know how, or they weren't getting the access to information that they needed easily, and everybody's busy. So in my past life, prior to moving to Virginia, prior to starting my business, I was a community engagement manager for public television. And that gave me the skills to go into a community and help a community define what's important to it, and to make changes. And so when I heard the community saying, hey, I really wish I could do more, knowing that I could help, then I knew I had to really dig in and get involved. The second half of it was downtown Herndon redevelopment. What was
or
it?
The lack thereof.
Well, just at the, I didn't have even that much information when this started. When the 3 or 4 citizens appealed at the almost 11th hour of our downtown redevelopment deal being signed, I just couldn't have it. I just thought of all the people who put in so much work and so much effort and so much heart and soul into that plan. And I thought, I cannot sit idly by and at least not try to help this community help itself. And the community, held the day that day, and we got to have that downtown agreement signed. Now, since then, I've kept about 500 neighbors together, staying involved and staying engaged and staying informed in downtown development. I'm as outraged as the next guy that we still have this big pit in the middle of town. And that's why, I don't have a choice here. I have got to finish what I started. I want to be a part of that table that makes the decision to push forward on that downtown redevelopment.
Yeah, no, that's great. I find that refreshing.
Thanks.
Because so many people just want to leave it alone and let it kind of meander or do what it's going to do, and we'll know something in 2 years, right?
That hurts me. And, I wonder what would have happened if some of us weren't loud and rattling cages and pushing the issue for the last couple of years. I think it's very easy for the powers that be to just say, oh, well, it'll happen eventually. We need a more informed community so that that community can make decisions and push when it wants to push and make changes when it wants to make changes.
You as a business owner know that there are projects, there are things that bring in revenue or expenses go out. And time kills those deals and things that bring revenue in or resources in. That's my big concern. I mean, what's your concern around the longer this thing goes?
I grew up in Buffalo, New York, and I am a Buffalo girl to the end, right? I love that place. But I saw time and again from the time I was a little girl until the time I left, projects that would get started, and a very enthusiastic group of citizens would put their heart and soul into them, and we would believe that that was going to happen, and then they wouldn't because of bureaucracy, because of a million different reasons. Doesn't even matter why. But when those projects sit unfinished, it erodes the community's will to finish them, to move on to the next thing. It starts to make the community not feel good about itself. We don't need to have that here. This is one project. It's a big project. That is avoidable, and so we need to avoid it.
Yeah, you've. I remember when we were starting to meet, or I started to get to know you. I saw you a lot active on the community boards.
Yeah.
I mean, that's your passion, I suppose, right? I mean,
it's where people are.
Right.
It's important to be able to go where people are, not just sort of throw out information in any way and hope that people understand it or can access it, or it's meeting them where they can get a hold of it. You find me a lot online because I think that's where people are looking for information.
Well, I noticed a lot of people. What's great is you took the criticism, but the support was, Donielle, why don't you run? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Right? That's such encouragement to say, keep doing more of this, but do it more formally.
Right.
I'm happy to take the criticism.
Did that factor into what?
Well, if I'm honest, I was a little reluctant to run. And that was encouraging, and you hear it from people, you should definitely do this, and maybe. But I had a conversation with my mom, and I think you'll be able to appreciate this. I'm a great-grandchild of immigrants, and we're sort of a political family, right? But no one's ever run. And so I talked to my mom, and I said, Mom, my great-grandparents got so excited. They learned English to go to the polls and vote. They got dressed up. They were so proud, and my uncles were involved. My grandfather was a committeeman. And so I said, Mom, why didn't they run? And she got really quiet, and she said they didn't feel like it was their place.
Oh, gee.
Their place, Cesar. And so I think I'm so fortunate to sit in this place where people like you will invite me to a table, right? Where I could be loud and I can handle whatever comes my way, generally speaking, from that. For all the people that don't feel like it's their place, I'm going to be the one that sits at that table, and I'm going to be loud for them.
Good for you. I like that. Hey, here's a little hint, and it's not me. I'm getting this from someone. There's a quote out there, and I forget who it was. It was a lady in the civil rights movement, and God forgive me, I don't recall the name.
I know what you're going to say.
It was, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring your own chair.
Shirley Chisholm said that.
Thank you. Okay,
That's
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think a part of it is, like build a longer table.
Yeah.
And I think some members of council right now are trying to do that with this Diversity and Equity Council. I was fortunate enough to be appointed to that council. And sitting down in that room for the first time and not knowing anyone at the table, having all different genders and ages and ethnic groups, that was exciting. Right? This is
Herndon,
new
right?
Herndon, right? This is what my neighborhood looks like. So why shouldn't this committee look like that? That's exciting for the future.
And again, I'm just projecting here. You, to me, represent why you're doing it as an inclusive sort of community, right? I mean, that's what I hear and see from you.
I appreciate that. I think if you ask anyone who has known me a long time, the first word that comes to mind is community. And I think, a community is defined as a group of people who care about something together, right? You could build a community around anything. We happen to live in a community. And we see each other walking our dogs and walking with babies and at the grocery store. And so why not build on that? We all have a desire to make this a great place to live. So let's figure out how we can work together to do that.
No, and I think that's a good background on you and why you jumped into this wackiness. Folks, when we come back, we're going to talk to Donielle a little bit more about what she wants to do and how she thinks she's going to get this stuff done. Please come back after this public service announcement. We really appreciate you being with us here in Studio C this evening.
Hi! Hoping for a crisp breeze to help keep you alert. Oh, he took a sip of water too. That'll probably help. You were probably gonna turn down the radio too, so you could focus, right?
Probably okay isn't okay.
Right?
If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
I think the water line is what really drove it home. I blew on him.
What's wrong with the world, mama? People living like they ain't got no mamas. I think the whole world's addicted to the drama, only attracted to things that'll bring the trauma. Yeah, madness is what you demonstrate, and that's exactly how anger works and operates. Man, you gotta have love just to set it straight. Take control of your mind and meditate. Let your soul gravitate to the love, y'all.
People killing, people dying, children hurt, and you hear them crying. When you practice what you preach, what you turn the other
Ma'am, you forgot your purse.
Oh, you don't know how worried I was. Thank you very much.
Hey.
Honesty. Pass it on.
Nice move, kid. Donut?
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
When I was your age, I was just like you, fascinated by stars. But now I get to search for life in the universe. And who knows, maybe life is looking for us too.
So we're like aliens to them?
Yeah. Does anyone want to be a scientist now?
I do.
Awesome. We need more girls in STEM.
Maybe we can find aliens.
we're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Hi folks, Cesar here, back with you in Studio C. It is Herndon night here in the studio, and we have a special guest coming back, Donielle Scherff, folks. Thanks for joining. Thanks for sticking that. Try saying Del Aguila. But okay, we talked a little about you and why you jumped in to this wackiness. Let's kind of just briefly talk about what you want to do.
Yeah.
What are some of the things you want to hit?
So, I want to make sure that we can, as a town, change how we communicate with the people who live here, right? Mm-hmm. Really clear communication and methods that are easy for people to access. Mm-hmm. I think we need improvements on our town website. I should be able to log in and pay my water bill without having that water bill in front of me. I should be able to look and see what Parks and Rec is doing. I should know what town events are happening. We live in the Dulles Technology Corridor, and our website is riddled with broken links. This is not, something negative against staff. I know they're busy, but this has to be a priority because that's our face.
Well, Donielle, that takes money.
I know it does. I know it does. But it also, we have a community full of people that are willing to donate their time too, and we happen to have people who are pros in this area. So let's take advantage of what we have and the goodwill of those people, and get it together and let people contribute.
Love it.
So that is important. I think somehow we've gotten away from community-driven solutions, right? That sounds really basic. It's not. It's a sea change for Herndon. Right. It's a matter of reaching to the community for priorities, listening, benchmarking, setting milestones, achieving what they're after, and then coming back and saying we did it and starting the next thing. Right? So simple, but not simple at all. It takes intentionality at every step. And I think we're at the right place. We're, like I said, we're at this inflection point in Herndon. We have this beautiful history, and we should always revere the history and be thankful to the people who came before us, frankly, because they made this place that we all decided we want to live in and that we love so much. Mm-hmm. But we can't stay stuck in that rut. Yeah. And also, to that point, third priority, absolutely, and not in order of importance, is getting that downtown redeveloped. I've said 1,000 times in the last 3 months, I am desperately afraid we will end up with a strip mall. We don't need a strip mall. Yeah. We're this cute little historic town. We need those character shops. We need to have, more places for people to walk, more places for people to have a meal and see their neighbors. And we can do that. It's in our grasp, but someone has to take ownership of it. And I want to be the champion of that on council. Awesome.
I love what you said about sort of like being responsive to the community. Like, there was that whole Spring Street, and for the folks, we had a couple cars turn over in a residential neighborhood. So they're either distracted or speeding, whatever the case. There was enough history where the neighbors came out and said, hey guys, help us. Someone's going to get killed. And we had enough of a foresight to allocate budget to just stuff that might happen. And that put us in a position where we could respond to the community. And that's what you're talking about, right? and people expect that. Because guess what? We all deal with like Fortune 500 companies. So the service is here. I expect this level of service, but I also expect it from my town, right? So that's the challenge, right? How do we get the town there? Right.
I think that whole situation is something we should be proud of. That there was a neighborhood, it needed some help. That group of mostly women at that point got together and knocked doors and talked to their neighbors and got people together and reached out to council and asked for better.
They were originally told, no, we can't help you, right?
They were. Okay, so I have to just brag a little bit. Yeah. Someone sent those ladies that originally started it to me and said, Donielle can help you put this together so that you can get some action on this. And I'm not going to take that over from them. Those women deserve so much credit for what they've done in such a short period of time. But I'm always happy to go in and say, let me help you build this. Let me spend a couple hours with you and we'll put this together and then go. And now that they did it, and now that they worked with council and they've finally gotten some support and they're getting a stop sign that will save lives on that street. they're happy to go and do the same thing with other people. So we've built the capacity for that little neighborhood to help the next neighborhood.
Nice.
Right?
Yeah.
And we're making the whole neighborhood better every time we do that.
Yeah.
And I always talk about neighborhoods. I love Herndon. It has sidewalks and streetlights and neighborhoods that feel like neighborhoods. It's one of my favorite things about Herndon. My logo for town council, people always ask, it looks like Sesame Street on purpose, because I feel like I feel like Herndon is my Sesame Street, right? It is my community, and it is beautiful, and it is gritty, and it is challenging, and it's always learning and growing, right?
Can I be Cookie Monster?
Yes,
Okay.
you can.
That's I never noticed that, but you are right. It is a neighborhood.
It is.
And I think that's, it sounds to me you're a type of person that can certainly work and collaborate in a team, lead when necessary, but also follow. So those are good skills. That's.
I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, I feel like that is the thing that our council's been missing. I don't ever feel like debate is a bad thing. I don't even think disagreement when it's loud is a bad thing. I think that that's a good thing. What I think council has lacked is someone to step in and facilitate the conversation to an end.
Well, there wasn't a forum. There isn't been a forum.
And I realize in creating that forum, everybody's probably a little uncomfortable, right? But now, civil discourse has to be mandatory.
Right.
We have to be able to disagree and come to some sort of conclusion. And at the end, there has to be some sort of solution. Even if the solution is, we need to table this till the next budget year, or we need to, move on this immediately because it's critical. That is the job.
Right.
If you're elected, do those things for the community. They're watching, and they expect it, and they deserve it.
And it's not for staff to figure all that stuff out and prioritize things. And that's why you have a council, right? So now I'm glad, and that's why they need people like you. By the way, I don't want to do this stuff forever. So I'm glad people like you are stepping up and getting into this, because that's what progress needs. That's what sort of a transformation needs. It needs new minds with fresh ideas, not just stuck in like the institutional way, right? How many people have heard, well, we don't do that? Or, yeah, we'll study that for another 10 years.
No.
You've missed the opportunity.
Well, I appreciate the compliment. And I also think that if this works out or if this doesn't work out for me, my next big audacious project is going to be helping either young people who want to make this something they do, or young women. I know in my heart the next thing is to help other people grow through this process.
Let's talk a little bit about like some of the challenges you've had. A little bit different, because this is your first time running for council. So I trust you have everything lined up, what you want to do, how you're going to get there. But what have been some of the challenges? I mean, just
as a first-time candidate.
Yeah.
So not ones that I expected, to be completely honest with you. I expected this to be a lot of work, and it has been. I expected it to be a challenge, and it has been. But Herndon has sort of a history of making this race in particular pretty toxic. And I know that was the reason why our political parties backed out. They didn't endorse us this time. That was an interesting challenge. I knew there'd be an impact as a first-time candidate not having that support, but I felt it very acutely. Not having sort of the sage wisdom of the community who has done this before to rely on made this harder. Also, surprisingly, we run with folks that we know, right? There's no one on this slate that I hadn't met prior to running. So I was really surprised at just some of the exclusion and, some very personal attacks behind the scenes. And I'm not going to give it a lot of credence to even talk about it with you, because I swore to myself when I started this I would do this gracefully and that I would be joyful in this, or I wouldn't do it at all.
Good for you.
So I'm not going to get down in the weeds and tell you too much about it, but man, it was personal and it was uncalled for, and I was surprised. I expected more of my neighbors who I knew than to take that route.
But you've learned.
I've learned. And I'm better for it.
Yeah, I think it's really a microcosm, I've said this, of neighborhoods across the country. There's sort of like this sort of need to keep everything perfect, or what people perceive as just right. and not change anything. So when you come up with an idea, hey, maybe we ought to address this potential road hazard a little differently. Well, let's study it because that's what you traditionally do. But some of us are like business people, like, well, we can do this faster. And I think people like you will make councils more agile and responsive, I think. And that's ultimately what I like to see, going forward. I think
I
most
hope that's
people
true.
do.
I hope that's true. You often use MVP, right? Minimum viable product. And I've been using that a lot, talking to neighbors, right? Maybe we don't have an instant solution to every problem, but that doesn't mean we can't get started. That doesn't mean we can't do something to make the situation better, and that's what we're going to do.
And that completely changes the approach, right?
Yeah.
I mean, from a business, you don't necessarily want to invest a ton if something doesn't pan out or if something fails. You kind of do that sample or seed it and then kind of see what grows.
I've seen sitting council members listen to a member of the community coming to them in an official capacity to say, I need help. And before that person's sentence is finished, they're getting a shaking head. They're getting, I'm just waiting for you to stop talking to tell you why we can't do anything about what you need. I won't have that.
Good for you.
Right? There's going to be some instances where it's outside of our jurisdiction. There's going to be some instances where we can't make everyone happy, of course. But to say no before figuring that out, not acceptable.
Right. I think you are going to do well.
I hope so.
I think you're going to do well.
I hope so.
But again, going back to, it's that breath of fresh air, new ideas, fresh minds. I think that's what all councils should strive to accomplish. You just can't have people on there year after year, 10 years. Oh, I'm starting my second decade on things. It's just, I mean, come on.
It's just time for a change.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
It's time for a change.
You clearly represent change.
Thank you. Yeah, well, and here's the thing. Whether or not I'm elected, I'm going to wake up the next morning and I'm still going to do great things for Herndon. So everyone's going to have to deal with me one way or another.
Yeah, I don't see that Herndon community page going away anytime soon, or your voice going away soon.
No,
So
Neighbors
good
for
for
Downtown
you.
Herndon Redevelopment is what that is. And everybody's always welcome to jump in and join the conversation.
Donielle, thank you so much for being on our
for
show.
having me.
Folks, I hope you enjoyed that. And the folks that are watching this, research all the candidates. I think you'll find a lot of compelling stories out there. And send us some emails, comments, questions, and we look forward to our next show with you guys. It may not be in all Herndon, but it'll be all region. Thanks for joining.